Ribbon cutting, what does this really mean for the state and its transportation sector? And are we truly ready for this shift given the current infrastructure? Joining me now to talk about this is Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwa, Executive Director, Lead Network Africa. Okay, welcome on the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
There's no need going over the narrative. We saw the reports. We saw what happened yesterday in Enugu State. A bold step, if we should call that. How do you feel about this?
I feel excited, and that aligns with one of the bold statements from the governor when he took over the reins of ruling in Enugu. You know, when he said it's going to be business unusual, and that's what I've seen coming up with, you know, things that are unusual when it has to do with our environment. Yes, we know, like, as regards to like an integrated transport system. We've seen that work in Lagos, but this will be like the first in the southeast, and perhaps southern Nigeria. And it's done in such a way that, you know, political pundits and those who are widely traveled could link it up with, you know, some of the things that are seen in Europe. Personally, I can also confirm that, you know, having traveled far and wide, and it feels good to see that this is really happening in our own environment, and Enugu is fast becoming a global city. Because when you actually talk about global destinations, these are local places that are transformed to attract people. You know, you make it livable. You make it in such a way that anybody could come there and fit in within the system, and that's exactly what we see the Mbah-led administration doing.
What does this mean for Ndi Enugu?
So it's pride. I think if there is, yes, based on the governor's interventions, yes, we could be divided on several issues. So for those that maybe want to look at it from the impact, right? Maybe in terms of, you know, you want to look at the impact in two ways, right? You know, we find a way from our. So for instance, like the establishment of the terminals, you know, came with, you know, so many people losing their businesses, you know, but then we now look at what has now resulted, right? Will it be of far more benefit? But though we differ in ideologies, you know, in conceptualization, but one thing all Enugu person can agree is that Mbah has made us to be more proud of where we are coming from. And you know that recently the Nigeria Bar Association would be having an event in Enugu, and with this, I recently launched an integrated transport system, and the huge business potentials and focus that NBA conference is going to bring to Enugu. You know, what more can make an Enugu man proud or an Enugu woman proud than the fact that we see, like in our own time, right? There's an Enugu Air. You know, recently when I wanted to check the fare price for Lagos, and I saw that, you know, relatively, right? You know, the price was fairer now, right? Because when it comes to competition, actually, you know, it's a price regulator, and it's interesting, you know, to really see that this is happening. Everything's all at the same time, like we see before personalization of the International Conference Center. Now, with a good transport system, right? You know, all integrated, whether you're talking about on the land, on the air, maybe in the water, you know, if you have like a that things, you know, connectivity, that things mobility, then that has great implications for the economy of the state.
You know, yesterday there was mixed reaction from commuters, from drivers, from some residents. You know, I saw the comment section online. Some people were saying Mbah left, Mbah didn't patronize, you know, Simotos, which is our own, and then he went to, you know, get from a foreign brand, get elsewhere. Some people were saying the launch of the CNG buses is going to affect their businesses, is going to do that. You know, some were happy and others were not. What would you say is the problem with Enugu people? Because I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and the person was like, Enugu people do not like good things.
Well,
I'd like to get your thoughts
it's an impression, because when you talk about Ndi Enugu people, you must realize that oftentimes you have the silent majority. In fact, those that oftentimes like react, you hear all the time, are those who are angry, who are not happy. Maybe those you could call disgruntled, right? They are not happy with, some of the things, or they just don't understand, and they get so emotional that they lose the rational component of our humanity. That is to say, to look at things critically, that it is not practically possible, right, to make some kind of developments without some adjustments. It's practically going to be like impossible. Like, for instance, if you want to dualize road, if you have to consider that, I may have to pull down people's building, right? That's humanity, human face to every policy. The interesting thing is that you end up not achieving that. What's going to be the implication? The implication is that the city skyline is going to remain as it were, right? If you also want to like do things like this now, right? You want to bring in buses, you want to, make the city such that if somebody who stayed in Europe, stayed in the US, right, comes into the city and sees what's happening, the person can be able to relate and say, this feels like I'm in London, this feels like I'm in Geneva, this feels like I'm in Paris. You cannot actually get that to happen while maintaining the status quo. And that is one aspect I need people to actually appreciate. And of course, those in government that manage communication must understand that it's not a one-way issue. It's not about pushing, the government side of the story, but also like gathering some intelligence, do media framing to be able to address some of those concerns. Because when I see like some of the, so in the governor's media team, some of them do great job. Some also like, descend to the level of, exchanging words and mixing issues with those offering their own perspective. Now, those things should serve as feedbacks to the government players to be able to address those concerns, right? Correct the impressions. And when those persons are persistent, you now know that it has now moved from issues to politics, right? And in that particular case, it could now be politics for politics. But when people bring up some of these issues, there must be like a way, if government is also like developing, to be able to like ensure that people feel compensated, people feel happy. You explain to them, it's not all about, might is not always right. But notwithstanding, one of the things I must say is that Ndi Enugu must understand that development is costly. It comes with dire implications. Every one of us must, in some regards, make adjustments. Because like, for instance, when you see Nigerians, maybe make some comparisons, right? Nigeria, they mention US. If you go to US, this is the way it's done. My dear, one of the things about those countries, strict compliance, right? If you just break one law, just minor one, right? You have it hot. It's not like a case of, one police officer you call. So if Nigerians are asking, want to be like America, they should actually know what it is like, right? Maybe like on monthly basis where you have to like pay for health insurance, a chunk of your salary.
There will be no Afia way.
There won't be any Afia way, and the whole system is so organized, data management, right? That you can't run away from the eyes of the government. But at the end of the day, you foster like a society that benefits all. And I want for those that are scared whether we're going to come to a point where those that are not highly paid will be edged out of the society. The simple truth is that in an economy, as it grows, right, the possibilities also grow. It then means that for you that is an apprentice, for you that is doing some petty trades, right, when you have like inflow of people bringing in more investment, that means you can sell more. That means you can also gain more. That means you can leverage on the economic growth and transformation that the state is witnessing.
Okay, Mr. Ephraim, we will quickly go on a short break and we'll be back. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying tuned. We sincerely apologize for the forced break. We still have Mr. Ephraim with us here in the studio. So, sir, let's talk about CNG buses. We've been seeing CNG buses. The governor rolled out 100 yesterday. And so market women would be asking, what's the CNG buses? I would like you to break it down for us. What does it mean?
Okay, so the word CNG simply means compressed, right, natural gas. And then what that means is that it's the cost of like CNG, right, in Nigeria right now is far more affordable, right, than that of like fuel and diesel. Interestingly also is that the combustion rate is low. So that means like it's more economical. What that means is that more can be saved on the buses to keep it powered. And by implication, that could affect the price. That would mean like fairer price, right? You know, for the transport system, particularly for that bus, because every bus is not at the moment running on CNG. But the implication is that the beautiful thing about public-private competition and collaboration is that it helps to keep prices in check. I give you an instance. If like you have like in school now, like the government is coming out with smart schools that can actually compare and even far outweigh many private schools. What that would mean is that sending your child down to private school would be a choice, right? You know, when you have like very efficient public schools, like a smart school now, and then it will not be a choice. It won't be like, oh, the reason why I must have to send my child to private schools because I can't get something maybe comparable. So the same thing also like is applicable here. So when you have like a very functional public transport system, right? And then for those of them in the private sector that can just fix any price, this will now, you know that you have an option, right? The only thing is that based on the scale, we know like the administration has promised that this is just like a 50% of what it intends doing, like rolling out 100 more buses. Because in terms of scale, looking at the current population of Enugu and the fact that Enugu is the center of the Igbo man, you have people flooding into the city.
Talking about that, yes. Don't you think this would affect other drivers? They are concerned.
So, certainly not, I can tell you. Certainly not. You know why? Like, I mean, Nigeria is actually largely populated, right? Largely populated in the sense that if it's like any sector you talk about, whether it's like hospital, yeah. The government built more hospital now. By the time you go to both private now and public hospitals, you see people are flooded there, waiting for doctors. Some doctors are doing several shifts. They are not just enough. We need more. Same also in transport system. The very fact that sometimes on the road, you see people waiting for long, right? You know, and trying to jump into any available bus. And then some others like know how to like settle on tricycle.
It doesn't happen all the time.
It doesn't happen all the time, but of course you know, just like elsewhere, right, in the world, there are peak hours when you talk about transport system, right? You know, there are peak hours. So early mornings, people have to go to work, and somewhere like in between. But I can tell you, for those peak hours, everyone will have enough, right? And for instance, for some of those private bus operators, that probably have to squeeze in people to make more profit. And because there are no options, we tell you, go and get your own car. There's no big man here, right?
Some bus drivers will even put two in front and collect him amount.
You can imagine that. So now they have like an alternative, and nobody likes competition. But one of the things I think, and that is how excellence is actually built, right? Yeah. That was how the Singapore today that we celebrate. How was Singapore built? Lee Kuan Yew just said, you know what? Let's use the public sector to show the private players an example, right? Which is supposed to be the model. Don't try to come up with regulations that are inhibitory. You want to kill private businesses. Come up with alternatives. When people know they have alternative and they can get it at fairer prices, anybody that is in private, if you're not doing well, right? You just have to do well to survive. And, you know, though this has not been largely discussed in Enugu business sphere, but what I say the governor as a great business guy doing is, it's almost like replicating a public alternative to every sector in Enugu. In hotels, is building hotel people are shouting. But the level of excellence that we see coming up, if you're in hotel business and you don't reinvent, but we collect your people, right? If you also like in transport sector and you don't try to do things differently, in school system you don't try to do, in healthcare is doing it, right? All across. So what that means is that it's a message that times for free lunch, because maybe the public sector is not working, is gone. Everybody has to awake to the responsibility, not to feel threatened, but to look at it and say, where is the trend, this trend taking us to? How can we realign to be inspired with this leadership that the current administration is providing to Ndi Enugu? Because if you ask me, public sector actually should be able to set the pace, right? And then private sector can now be able to embolden their vision. And in the course of trying to compete, I tell people the essence of competition is not for contention, but to drive excellence, right? Because when you're trying to compete, trying to get better, right? You end up, driving excellence. And excellence will make all of the difference.
Yeah, we commend Dr. Peter Mbah for what he's doing in Enugu State. But let's talk about this the CNG bus system. We are talking about them rolling out the buses and all of that. But the question in mind is, where would these buses go to refuel?
Go
to refuel. Where would they go to fuel gas?
Okay. So currently, yeah, I think it's something there for the government, and they have factored in all of those things. For them to roll out the bus now, because of course not in the regular filling stations, I'm sure that the government has made provision for that.
Well, when I was doing my research, I didn't see any.
Yeah. So what we are going to wait, maybe we'll wait for the next 3 days.
So does that mean it's not taking effect now? Is that what you're saying?
It is actually, because I mean, if you ask me,
okay,
my guess actually, was right. When I think that maybe the government should actually set up this system running before the NBA conference.
Yeah.
And none that has happened, right? And with that happening, what we now expect is, okay, when people who are coming into the city, I mean, when you have close to 20,000 people, right, coming in for the conference, what that would mean is they want to feel the city, right? Some of them want to move about and then see the skyline of the city. And so those buses should be running, because that is the essence. I mean, for long, it was there even before the midterm assessment in May. So now that the government says it's up and rolling, perhaps we might need the next 72 hours to reassess. But I think, right, that government having waited on this particular point must have all factored it in, right? All that we are interested now is, okay, the buses are up and running. All of the things like the logistics, the maintenance of the bus break are more like internal issues, for which if they don't disclose, like those managing the integrated bus transport system, perhaps we may not know until maybe the media also do further interrogations.
Of course, we'll look out for that. So what challenges do you foresee in this?
So that would be that when you set up a system like this, right?
Yeah.
Proper and adequate management would be expected. Secondly, fostering a culture of excellence. When you look at the way things are now, okay, so people need the smart card, right, to be able to access this bus. What is the structure the government has put in place to ensure adequate orientation on the masses? Because one thing about policies is when you come up with new policies, people need to be adequately informed on the modalities. If I do this, so there should be a kind of, some kind of engagements with the people. To let them know how they can access this. If you want to do this, okay, this is how you can get the card. Yeah, I'm sure, of course, that those cards, like we see in developed nations, are usually available in those stations, right? You could just come, pick, pay, and then activate based on certain credits or volumes that you want in the card. And with that, once you swipe your card, your payment is taken and stuff like that. But ability to sustain that excellence and to sustain the excellence, to feel wherever we've replicated the model from there, that means there has to be training, adequate training. It has to be excellence in the recruitment process. The recruitment is pretty much done, but I'm not sure how it was done. But whatever be the case, the government will be able to evaluate, right? Those working there, ensure that there are those courteous, right? When you come to a place like that with very nice environment, with nice infrastructure, with nice templates in place, you should also see nice services made available by nice people, people that are properly trained to deliver excellence, because anybody that wants to access that service is coming to bring in money to you, and the person should feel value for his or her money.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ephraim, for that. If this is executed properly, what could the transport and business landscape of Enugu look like in the next 3 to 5 years? What are your expectations?
I'll tell you the honest truth, it's one of the things, right? So transport basically can contribute in 3 major ways to a city, especially if it's modernized like this, right? Yeah. I tell you, for those that want to post things on social media, when you are in that bus and post it, someone will think that you are in London, right? Someone will think that you are maybe somewhere in Geneva or somewhere in Paris, and then somebody may want to visit your city and oh, Enugu, I've never heard of that. And I can tell you that the governor has actually put Enugu on the global map. People will want to come to a city that is opened up in terms of transportation, right? When you come, you have a way of navigating, and I know with time also, the government can consider having tour buses, right? To take people around, visitors in the States. Second is that when you have the government alternative, right? That is, smart, formidable, that's also a challenge, to private players. That the days of trying to use rickety buses for transport business is gone. So if over time you've just been doing it that this is going to be business as usual, then you have to save up money, right? There is this thing where when you have competition, and if you don't reinvent, you're going to edge out of business. So you now begin to think big. How do we even, reposition our transport business to be able to to still remain relevant with the innovation that the government is bringing to board, right? And then thirdly, is that we also see that yes, some businesses were lost by the virtue of, clearing of the place, to set up the parks. But interestingly, also businesses will be created, right? I mean, from the estimation the governor gave, right? I mean, over 2,000 jobs by the virtue of these, because some people will be, in the ticketing section, right? Probably will have those for security, and then the drivers, those that will check in, and we are talking about this happening across 5 parks, right? Those also for maintenance, and so it's like a value chain, that everyone is going to benefit from, right? Those that are employed. So it's more like, okay, what we lose here, we gain the other. But then what I think moving forward would be that when government want to make some kind of disruptive programs, right? Disruptive in the sense that it's excellent, but it's going to affect people. There should be engagement. There should be templates for comprehensive compensation, because you are dealing with people. As I'll tell you the simple truth, you can't hide that. There are those, their worst nightmare is that Mbah ever happened, right? Because, I mean, for instance, if I had business in the 2 locations affected and I lost it, and I'm now looking food and hungry, even if that government hey, let him bring Trump, I will be angry. So it's a call on Governor Peter Mbah to seek out those persons if they have not done it well. Oftentimes, sadly, you might not hear that truth from those that surround you in the seat of power, because the rule of politics is don't talk while you eat. It's wrong table manners politically to talk while you are eating. You don't do that. So he can only hear that from people like us. And if he wants to listen, it should be comprehensive to compensate them, because businesses were lost. Because there probably may not be a way to explain it to people that you want to create business and some businesses are destroyed. Now, how do you now match the two? Since these businesses they are doing are not sustainable based on, okay, the mannerism with which it's done, and the fact that that can also serve for better purpose, considering that you are looking at a comprehensive transformation of the state. But most importantly is that also ensure that you don't leave aside those persons, right? Away from your developmental plans, because development, it shouldn't just be all about structure. You also talk about social impact. You're also talk about lifting up people out of poverty.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chukwuma, for joining us on the program today.
You're most welcome.
And that's much we can take on the ESTMS Business Report today. Till I see you at 10 a.m. on Monday for another edition of the Afia Business Morning. I am Marvelous Apwamaga. Many thanks for watching.
you.